Morning here in the scenic apartments. What a nice place it is. I think it's probably a little bit over budget, to be fair. Anyway, I'm not going to complain. It wasn't me that booked. Somebody else's head can roll, can't it? Anyway, so we're here. Got here pretty late last night. Met up with Scott Collum that runs the off-road driving centre down here, and handed him over his brand new Well, actually, it isn't brand new. It's almost brand new Husqvarna 300cc. So enduro bike, but it is road legal, two-stroke. It's pretty cool. In fact, it's very cool, I must admit. I'm quite jealous because I do like two-strokes. Now, let me just get all this set up. We're currently transmitting from the balcony at the hotel because it's not a bad view up there. Look, of there's the luge up there, and of course you've got the gondolas going up the hill as well. So, you know, you may as well share the nice view with me. Right, here we go. Live, another live stream. Who would have thought? Now, just to let you know, there is no pie. Now, there's a reason for that. Yesterday, I got to Omarama, which is sort of inland from Oamaru. It was on my route down to Queenstown, and I stopped off at the Boot and something or other pub and had a pizza. It was crap. It was really, really, really crap. It was all burnt, had massive chunks of meat in it, which you wouldn't argue about. Most of it was sausage, and they didn't give me any cutlery. So it was almost impossible to eat. I was a real mess by the end of it. I gave up halfway through, and from that point on, did not feel very well at all. So food was the last thing on my mind, and everywhere was shut when I got into Queenstown anyway, all the bakeries and stuff. So no pie today, sorry. Right, where do we get to? Who have we got in Queenstown? We have Simon. Good morning, Simon. Simon says, morning, Andy and crew. Well, I hope you enjoy your hour or so in Queenstown, Simon. Daz, 323323. Morning, Andy and crew. Good morning, Daz. Welcome back, sir. Roger Heaps. Good morning, Andy and crew. Good morning, Roger. I'll be seeing you soon, matey. Connor K. Hey, Connor K's in Queenstown. Good morning, Connor. Hope all is well. Now, obviously, these on-site live streams tend not to get many views. That's just fine. It's a quick chance for me to catch up with you and let you know what's been going on. So where do I start? Well, I think I'll start with a cigarette, actually. Now, yes, I am allowed to smoke on the balcony. They even gave me an ashtray. They're actually really good because when I turned up last night, I've got the ute, obviously, that needs secure parking. Because it's got all the tools and scope and stuff in it, lots of specialist equipment, so that doesn't want to go walkabout. Some of it's mine as well, which is important, and the trailer, and on the trailer was the car, and on the back of the ute was the bike at the time of arrival. So pretty loaded up and quite high as well. The bike's sat about 2 foot higher than the cab on the ute, so there was underground car parks were definitely not an option, could not happen. So I explained to them that there should have been parking organised for the ute and the trailer. All that was done in advance, and they went, "Oh yes, no problem at all. You're going to park it outside reception." So we shuffled around a bit and got it all parked up. So that was brilliant. Scott turned up, grabbed his bike, and everything was good by about 10 o'clock last night. I gave up. Finished doing what I had to do. Sat in front of the telly, tried to cool down a bit and cow off, and just get a bit of rest because I was pretty knackered. And woke up at 10 to 1 this morning with the telly blaring. Fell asleep on the sofa. Nothing new there. Oh, Daz, 323323. Is the Fergburger still there next to... Fergbacker still there next to Fergburger. They do good pies. I'll probably have a wander down at some point today. I'm spending the day after the live stream with Ellie, my youngest daughter. I brought down Mrs. Mechanic's car, a little Suzuki Swift. It was quite a trek actually to bring a car all the way down here, but it towed really, really well on the little trailer. It only just fit on the little trailer, but it towed fine, no issues, no punches, no problems at all with the trailer at all. It was really well behaved. Even called in actually at Atlas Trailers in just inland from Christchurch and south a bit, begins with a D. We've got Darfield. There you go. In Darfield, they're the South Island importers for Ifor Williams, and super helpful. Picked up a new distribution box because the lid had fallen off when I did the new bed. I found that one of the lids had come off and it had corroded inside. All the lights were still working, but I thought, well, I'll get a new one while I'm there. Got a new mud guard for the big trailer because somebody hit something. It might have been me, might have been somebody when it was on hire. Needed a new mud guard for that. Some new spring eye bushes for the front springs because they're shot. It's due a warrant when I get back. What else did I get? Oh, a spare wheel bearing for stock, just in case. And also useful for the trip, right? It's not a big job to fit, and there's plenty of workshops around that I can borrow. It's not a problem there. I'm waiting for the tyres to wear out. That sounds a bit odd, I know, but I bought some wider rims for it, the same kind of width rims as on the big trailer. So once these tyres have worn out on the little trailer, then we're going to upgrade to the heavy-duty rims and put some decent, I think they're a 10-ply tyre on there, which are a lot more puncture-resistant and they're a lot more readily available. The tyres that are on the little trailer, to get good high ply rating tyres is very, very difficult and quite expensive. So in the long term, it'll be cheaper. In the short term, it's not. It's very expensive to do it. But it also gives me 2 spare wheels because I bought 6 rims, not 5. So that's a bonus as well when you go in long distance. I've only got 1 spare at the moment. Anyway, we digress. So let's roll back to Easter weekend. And Good Friday and Saturday, we were working on the ROV, Mrs. Mechanic and then myself. I got the engine all put back together, got it run up. Runs mint, no problems. And I'm thinking, why did it overheat in the first place? You know, I'm trying to hunt down and diagnose the primary fail. What caused it to overheat? And I pressure test the system. I found a few very, very small leaks, and realistically, I was over pressurized the system to what it would normally run at anyway. So they're only the little spring clips, they're not hose clamps. So I was expecting a little bit, and it was nothing major at all. Ran the fan up and it sounded a bit noisy on one of the bearings. It's about 18 months old, this machine, which is pretty common on those. And so I thought, why, you know, can't find this primary fail. I wonder what happened. So I looked back at the service history, the previous repairs on the machine, and there was a bit of wiring to do, specifically the fuse box due to corrosion. And it turned out that the machine had been quite deep in the sea very early in its life, and that had caused a failure of the fuse that controls the cooling fan. It had basically corroded away and gone open circuit. Fan had stopped working, caused the engine to overheat. At the time, all my notes are on the invoice. I'd done a coolant pressure test. I checked to see if the head gasket was leaking. It wasn't. There was no issues at all at that time, and it's taken a whole year for it to materialize and for the head gasket to fail. And I believe that's because of that original overheat event. And I did warn them. I said, look, you know, keep an eye on it because it might start to use some coolant. And it did, because it had pink coolant in it in the system when I got the vehicle this time around. And it should be green. The original coolant is green. So somebody was topping it up. They knew it was using coolant, losing coolant, whatever, but they didn't tell me. They just continued to use it. And of course, that made matters worse, unfortunately. They cooked the cylinder head and it needed a replacement cylinder head. If they told me straight away, they might have been all right. Who knows? It might have got cooked the first time round, you know, significant overheat, or it might have happened this time around. I just don't know, but there's a chance they could have saved some money if they contacted me straight away. But hey, some people you just can't tell, right? You know, you tell them many, many times over and they just don't take it on board. Note to oneself, don't breathe coffee. Jeez. Now, where do we get to? So, yes, ROVs Friday, Saturday. I'll cover Sunday in a minute. Let's catch up with the comments. We've got a few here. Where we Simon, so are you getting a bank holiday for the King's coronation? Ooh, what date is that, Simon? I've no idea. I've not really been following it. I've been busy driving. Jim K, a nice haircut. Thank you, Jim. I think it came out pretty well. It's a little bit, I don't know, it's a bit blustery today as the old ponytail. It's a bit high as well, actually. It might have to get adjusted. Anyway, we'll see. Next. Had the old keratin treatment again. Does help to stop the hair falling out, I must admit. It's good. MF50B, morning Andy and crew. Thomas sausage roll for lunch, so good. Oh, mate. You can't go wrong with a Thomas's sausage roll. Yesterday, good segue actually, yesterday went to one of the petrol stations. One of the many petrol stations that I didn't stop at. And they had completely run out of pies. Well, there was one pie left. It was some vegan-y thing. And it was quite interesting because there was a bit of a queue to the pie counter, you know, because they're all in a heated cabinet. Quite a big cabinet in the BP ones. And there was probably 3 or 4 blokes in front of me. And each one of them went to the pie cabinet, looked down, and it was just barren. There was nothing there apart from this single pie and a little label saying vegan something or other, meatball-y thing. I don't know what it was. Obviously not meatball, but you know, it's some grass version of a meatball. And they would look down, read that, and just go, huh, wander off. Then the next one would turn up, do exactly the same thing, realise there's only a vegan one there, really disappointed, wander off. So it was my turn, and I'd sort of worked out what was going on at that point. So I thought, well, there is a sausage roll left. I'll have to have that because I'm hungry. I need some food because I've got a long drive ahead. In fact, it was just after I'd been to Copperhead Road Hair Salon. Yes, let's say about that better. Yeah, I had a sausage roll, and it was just food. It was crap. New Zealand sausage rolls are nothing like the ones in England. I miss Thomas sausage rolls. I really do. Thomas the bakers, best bakers around. They should open up in New Zealand and make a killing. They really would. There's a lot of English people in New Zealand, and I'm sure they all miss Thomas the bakers. Oh, hang on. I'm gonna scroll back a little bit. Oh, jeez. Connor K, last week you posted a picture of Teslas on a trailer burning. Did. Happy that the truck was unhooked and moved away. You know that Elon Musk fanboys were weeping. Yes, I'm sure they would be. Shouldn't find humour in that, but yes, I do find humour in that. As every day goes by and I see more and more posts, and obviously people are not going to post pictures of Teslas that are not on fire because it's not interesting. So you do get a bit of a tainted view on how combustible Teslas are and how often they like to combust. But there's a lot of things to think about these electric vehicles, and the more I think about it, the worse it really is. I passed a Tesla charging station, which was actually in Omarama on the way in, 4 brand new Tesla chargers down in a car park on the right, and about 10 feet behind, a huge white cabinet, lots of vents, and a big exhaust. Inside that cabinet was a diesel generator. I mean, come on. It's just dumb. It really, really is. And I'm pretty confident, given the crappy network of power lines in New Zealand and power distribution and power availability, that's going to be very commonplace, that kind of scenario in the rural areas of New Zealand. So they're not helping anything. It would be more economical just to have a diesel car, surely. You know, there's obviously power losses, generating the power on site with a diesel generator and then charging the car up and then using the car and then trying to find another place. I mean, it's just crap. It really is. You know, in an ideal world where there's millions and millions of charging points and you can charge whenever you want, it's just rubbish. It really is. And I was watching Spinning Wheels, Aging Wheels, YouTube channel. And he was saying that most people don't charge from 0 to 100 on the vehicles. They usually charge, 40 or 50% is about the amount of charge that they do when they're charging up. How many more stops do you need to do? It's just ridiculous. I mean, you don't half fill your tank. I mean, I don't. I usually run to about 50, 100 Ks of fuel left and go and brim the tank again and carry on. I try to minimise the number of fuel stops, not maximise them. Anyway, it's just a rant. Don't like electric cars. I think they're stupid. They're really, really stupid. And e-bikes, mountain bikes, e-bikes. I was thinking about them the other day. They do not in any way benefit the planet. I can't see one single benefit. There might be the odd person that decides not to use the car and use the e-bike to get to work. Okay, fair enough. There's going to be a small percentage of them, but the vast majority is people buying an e-bike, maybe replacing their old mountain bike with an e-bike, so they can go further and do more stuff and not be knackered quite so much. But the vast majority are buying e-bikes for the first time to go and get back into bicycling that they used to do many years ago. So it's not a replacement product, it's an additional product. It's more batteries that have to be made, it's more stuff that's got to be transported by ship, burning diesel. There was, in fact, going back to AG Wheels, I know I'm jumping around a bit. He has one of those, something Star electric cars. So it's not a Tesla, it's the other one. I've forgotten the name of it. And he hit a pothole, right? This is quite funny actually. He hit a pothole with a car and it knackered a tyre, sorry, knackered the rim and the wheel alignment, the tracking went way out. Polestar, that's the name of the cars. He lives 480 miles away from the nearest official Polestar dealer. He had to have the car sent back to the nearest Polestar dealer to have the wheel alignment done. Now, fair enough, he said that they paid for it, but that's 480 miles of transportation for that car to the dealer and another 480 miles transportation of the car back to him once it was fixed. Nearly 1,000 miles of transport on a truck that burns diesel. And every time the vehicle needs to be serviced, he goes through exactly the same process. I mean, really, if you start to factor that kind of shit into owning an electric car, polar bears are going to be gone by next week. They really are. It's just ridiculous. It really is. Anyway, thank you, Connor, for reminding me of that. JJ, morning, Andy and crew. Good morning, JJ. Welcome back to Queenstown. Jim K, I bet it was late on service. Probably. Oh, it was the first one. That going back to the ROV, yes, it came in at about 80 hours, and I laid down the law with them. I really did at that point. If it had come in at its 20-hour service, which is first service, and it had already been in the sea at that point, I don't know, nobody knows, then I would probably have picked up on the issue then. I always pull the fuses at every service and then spray the fuse box, with some kind, usually like a spray grease, something to stop the moisture, the salty moisture getting there and attacking it, because it's not a fully sealed fuse box, unfortunately. And doing that at each service never had any problems, but that one didn't get it because it didn't come in for its first service at the right time, and of course the corrosion set in. It set in so quickly that the fan failed within the first 80 hours of use. Unbelievable, really, isn't it? It just shows you how harsh an environment it is on the beach for vehicles. And those machines do brilliantly well. They really do, but you've got to do a few extra bits to them to make them reliable, and that's my job. But they have to let me have the vehicle to do that. Mike Adams, howdy all. Checking in while taking a break from being handyman. Oh, you're fixing bits and pieces today. Good man. Well, good morning, Mike. And welcome to Queenstown. For those that have just joined us, behind my head where I'm always sitting, that's the gondolas and the luge that's here in Queenstown. Pretty cool up there. There's some nice restaurants and stuff as well. So if you're ever in Queenstown, you need to go up the gondolas and have at least some food up there. The luge is pretty awesome as well, actually. Very cool. We did an event down here with work. Oh man, about 4 years ago. It was very cool. It was the launch of one of the ROVs. I had a great time. Vijayant, evening Andy and crew. Good evening, Vijayant. It's obviously morning here in Queenstown, but good evening, sir. Simon, I find UV dye a good way to find small. Oh, UV dye is a good way to find small coolant. Pop it in and come back a day or so later. That's a good idea. It is. Yeah, there were no telltales of coolant leak prior to me pressure testing the system. So I don't think, in fact, I'm very confident the reason why it overheated this time is head gasket failure, which was from the original overheat a year earlier. I have replaced the main coolant pipes. Well, I'm going to be doing. I've got new ones for it. As a matter of course, the vehicle's about 18 months old now, and we've decided that at every service, and I only get to service them once a year. Every service, apart from the first service, obviously, they will get new coolant pipes. Now, if I find, because the ones that we get, we use genuine parts, obviously. But we also spray them. Mrs. Mechanic sprays the pipe, gives them 4 or 5 coats of really good zinc-based paint, which is quite resistant to the environment. With the same paint used on the calipers. So when they come in a year later, if it all looks good, I'll pull the floor out. If it looks good, we'll just leave them alone. But changing them for painted ones 18 months in is a guarantee that they're not going to fail during the lifetime at the surf club. One less thing to worry about, and they're not expensive to do. So peace of mind, right? The Giants, why so late, Andy? Oh, maybe you didn't get the memo. The clocks here changed in New Zealand. They did. So I wasn't late. You just weren't aware of the clocks changing, right? So whatever time it was that I started will be the same time now moving forward for your area for the next sort of 6 months. Until they decide to change the clocks again, which is even more annoying. Kevin, Machine and Z, morning Andy, trip going well. It is going well. I've done the bulk of the intensive driving now. I'm nearly at the bottom of the South Island. I'm in Queenstown. I've only got to get to Invercargill. There you go, Jim. And then I start heading north. I mean, I'm not halfway through the kilometres yet. I've still got a lot more k's to drive, but it'll be spread over a lot more days, so it'll be a little bit easier. Would I say it was a rush to get down? Yesterday it went on a bit longer than planned. The old kerosene treatment takes quite a while. Tyler was really good. We got finished about 2 p.m, so I didn't leave. Where was it? Rolleston. Didn't leave Rolleston till gone 2, which is a bit late, really. But hey, it was a nice drive, great weather. Traffic was pretty low. Not very many police around. Not that I speed anyway, but there weren't many police. I get a bit anxious when there's police around. Don't like it. So it all went well. Apart from the pizza. The pizza was crap. That really wound me up with that. Right, so there you go, Kevin. Richard Perry, morning and crew, GB, thumbs up. Good morning, Richard, and welcome to Queenstown. Done quite a few live streams from Queenstown, haven't we? Purple Monkey, 1974. Hi. Good morning, Purple Monkey, and hi to you too. Simon, Saturday the 6th of May, 2023. Saturday the 6th. It's a bloody Saturday. I'm not going to give us. We've already got Saturday off. Are they going to give us a day in lieu? I don't know. We'll have to find out. 6th of May. Hang on, I'm going to take a picture of that because I will only forget. Thank you, Simon. Boom. There we go. Oh, by the way, the camera is on a really crappy tripod that I picked up in Wellington because I'd forgotten my normal one because I'd stolen the clamp of it anyway. So I'd taken it out of my rucksack. It's one of those gorilla thingies with all the little weird twisty leg things, so it's a bit wobbly, sorry. And you're on a Pyrex dish with a coaster on it to give it a flat surface because I had to lift it up. So you're a bit precarious at the moment. If you fall off the table, I'll be sure to rescue you, don't worry. Thank you, Simon. Mike Adams, is it that each formula of coolant affects the gaskets or metals differently, or is it just if you mix the different formulas? I really don't like to mix coolant up at all. I always stick to what the genuine manufacturer stipulates, and obviously I usually drain the system. If it's had any foreign kind of coolant in, I'll flush it out. You can fall foul if you use the wrong kind of coolant. It can damage things like water pump seals and stuff. It's not so much the gaskets, I don't think. It's more the water pump seals. If they're not immune to that, to the chemicals in the coolant, they can react. They can go brittle, they can go hard, or they can just go really floppy sometimes and not seal properly. They can lose their shape and also expand. A bit like a caliper main seal. If you put like WD-40 or CRC spray on it, it just swells up and loses all its shape. We used to find that a lot with the dust seals on the little Suzukis. If you use the wrong stuff, so it's very important to use the right stuff in the coolant system as well. And a lot of cars now have specific coolant that you have to use. There's a lot more versions or types of coolant out there than there ever used to be. I just use the glycol stuff, which is what the manufacturer recommends. Sheldon, morning Andy and crew. Good morning, Sheldon. At this point in time, Sheldon, I don't need to use your workshop. The trailer is performing incredibly well. I'll be fitting those spring eye bushes when I get back up to, or back home. Again, the trailer ready for its warrant. Oh, Sheldon again. We are on EV fires, are we? I saw a BYD video with a ton of them on fire. Ah, yes. Well, they just seem to self-combust. I really wouldn't be happy with having an EV. I wouldn't feel safe driving it for many reasons. I have driven a couple. I've driven quite a few of the Prius, which are obviously not fully EV. They've got a little petrol engine as well. Hybrids. But I just don't like them. I don't like them at all. They're too quiet. They're unnerving. If you're in a car park, you know, and you're walking across with your shopping trolley or whatever, you don't get that pre-warning of an engine starting up that somebody's going to reverse out. They just zoom straight out in front of you and you have no idea. So I think the hazard to pedestrians alone should call for them to be completely outlawed. But that's not going to happen. The whole world seems to be following this track of EV vehicles are the best thing ever. And they really, when you start digging down, they really aren't. And I think some insurance companies now, as time goes on, are going to start to realise all the additional costs associated with insuring that kind of vehicle. Some multi-storey car parks now don't allow, they've banned EV vehicles. There's a multi-storey car park in Highbrook that only recently, about 6 months ago, had some charging units installed, and obviously the company with the charging units would be approached them and said, look, we'd like to put some in, and then it'd be charged them rent and that kind of stuff. And then they must have had a fire, and they've now banned EV vehicles from that multi-storey car park, so the charging company doesn't get any revenue at all. They put all that money in there to put the chargers in, and they can't use them. There's no customers, they're not allowed in there. Bit of a cock-up really, isn't it? Simon, the fire brigade in the UK are looking at skip-type trucks that can be filled with water to dump electric cars in when they go up. That's very similar to what they're doing in the US. I know in the US, I read some posts probably about a year ago or so, that when the salvage company has collected the vehicle, and they don't like collecting them as they are because they can catch fire again on the back of their truck, and I'm sure that's happened plenty of times. But once they get to the storage yard, each EV has to be put in its own little concrete barrage walled area just in case it fires up again, to protect the rest of the vehicles. Otherwise they'd have a massive inferno, wouldn't they, you know? There was a case in Auckland only a couple of weeks ago. Guy had a double garage, had an EV car in there, which was a Nissan Leaf, I think it was, and a normal petrol car. And he woke up early in the morning. The garage, fortunately, was a separate building to the house, and the whole thing was ablaze. Now they said it was down to a binding front brake that had caused the fire. But if the brake had been binding that much, and this was on the petrol car, if it had been binding that much on the front when he was driving the vehicle, it had been pulling horrifically to one side. So it just doesn't stack up. He would have noticed that, you know, and he would have realised there was a problem with his car. And he would have smelt, you know, all the nasty smells and stuff coming off the brakes. I think it was the Leaf. I think the Leaf went up. But they're not. There seems to be a bit of a cap on the media at the moment on electric car problems here in New Zealand. They're sort of damping it down, pardon the pun, to try and stop scaring the public and still try and lure them in through huge incentives. I think they get up to $7,000 cash back. Or money towards buying an EV car in here in New Zealand. So they're all cashing in. They're all buying these bloody cars. And it's just dumb. It really is. Kevin, a mate, just had his newish EV serviced, cost him $600. Wow. I remember, what is this to do on an EV car apart from the brakes? I remember the early sales spew was that EVs will be cheaper to service because they have fewer moving parts. Total bullshit. It is, and there's not that many people around, or dealerships, that can actually service EVs, especially here in the South Island. So again, you've got lots of additional travel incurred to get your vehicle, to get it serviced at an EV service centre, which uses more energy, which burns more diesel at the Tesla charging points, right? The whole thing is just stupid. It really, really is. It just doesn't work. John Dwyer, morning Andy. EVs are a con. Hydrogen cars are the way to go. Honda is working on production Civic. Excellent. Hydrogen cars, apart from the fact it's a mobile bomb. YouTube might ban the video now. I said the bad word. I think that's a far more plausible alternative to fossil fuels. I really do. The biggest issue at the moment, I think, is, well, there were two. One was, which sounds like they've sussed it now, making a hydrogen fuel cell small enough to produce power, electric. But also, of course, we've got the network to think about, where you're going to get your hydrogen from to fill your car up. And again, New Zealand, there's one or two places that sell it, but it really isn't very common at all. So for most areas in New Zealand, that kind of vehicle at the moment just wouldn't even be applicable. It wouldn't be an option. Right. Purple Monkey 1974. Polestar would have needed truck 4 trips. Empty getting there and empty last return. That's right. You're right. You're absolutely right, because he lives in the sticks. I mean, I don't know whether the truck was a multi-car carrier or a single car carrier. But if it was single car carrier, you're absolutely right. Nearly 2,000 miles, not kilometres, miles, just to sort the wheel alignment out. And they only charged him for the wheel alignment. That was it. They didn't charge him anything for the transportation, which, from a customer's perspective, is great, but it doesn't help the polar bears, does it? At all. It's just ludicrous. It begs belief what's really going on out there. I mean, obviously that's an isolated case, but there will be other people in a similar scenario. Of course, some people will live a lot closer to Polestar dealerships, but many of them won't. There will be journey times involved to take it for a service, and they're probably going to be a lot greater than a normal, petrol or diesel car service. You've got a lot less options with EVs, right? So where do we get to? Mike Adams. That was a very good point, Purple Monkey, actually. I didn't think of that. Mike Adams. My 1-ton diesel Dodge can travel a little over 1,078 kilometres on one tank, no matter the weather, and only takes 15 minutes to fill up. Ford Lightning, yes, I've seen those. Hoovie's Garage. Half the distance and over half an hour to over an hour to recharge. I passed a car. There were 2 ladies in it. They were charging the car up, and they were just sat in the car waiting for it to charge up. Is their lives so invaluable that they can waste so much time just sat in the car waiting for it to charge up? I haven't got time for that. And I think a lot of people haven't got time for that. We're busy people. We've got stuff to do, right? We need to get to where we're going. We don't need to... And how many times did they have to do that to get to where they wanted to go? It's just... it winds me up. It really does. It's just stupid. And all these people that are going out and buying these cars, they have no idea on the implications and how it's going to affect their lives, and the costs involved further down the line as well. How do they dispose of these cars? That can't be good for the planet. I know here there is absolutely no way of disposing of the battery packs. They just bury them. There's nowhere. That's not good for the planet. Sheldon, I'll have to teach you how to say Omarama. You will. I have no idea. Omarama. That's how it's spelled. Omarama, right? Anyway, Mike Adams. The range and charge time for the Lightning is in perfect conditions only. Yes, I watched that. He was also he did a test towing a trailer, and did one test towing a trailer, and he did another test on a really cold morning, and both of them were a real eye opener. Wouldn't work for me. And the whole reason why I would buy a ute is for it to do work, to cover the distance, to do the vehicle collections, to do stuff. And okay, some people buy utes because I want a ute and it looks cool, and they just drive to the shops in it. And maybe for those people, it's okay, but it's probably not the right kind of vehicle. It's certainly not the most economic vehicle they should be looking at buying anyway. So for the main target audience, the main target consumer for that vehicle type, it absolutely does not work. You know, I think they've missed the point. Jim K. Got the heater done finally. Oh, well done, Jim. Excellent. Well done, matey. Mike Adams. I could do with a heater out here, actually. It's pretty cold. I was going to get my jacket, but it's down in the truck, down in the foyer, and it's a bit of a trek from the room. It's a big complex, this. A bit of a trek down to where the utes park. So I thought, no, we're all good. Hang on, we've got a. Might be Mr. Mechanic saying, Mr. Young, you're waffling. Oh, it's Ellie. Hang on. It's my driving trainee this morning. Okay, now, oh, hang on. Okay, nice work. Okay, nice work. See you in a bit. Lots of dogs and cats. Oh, okay. Right, so there's lots of children, dogs and cats where she lives, so not to drive over any of them. Thank you, Ellie. Appreciate the warning. I'll refrain from doing that. Mike Adams, my Dodge is 24 years old and doesn't catch fire, lol. Excellent. That's what I like to hear. Kill switch. Hi, Andy, or should I say meat? I couldn't resist getting that photo taken, actually. Yeah, Tyler said to me, how much are we cutting off? And I just said as little as possible, you know, trying to grow it. Says it keeps falling out, so I don't want to lose that much. But she did a great job, and we had a bit of a laugh doing it as well. So yeah, it's a little bit flyaway today. It's not really very stable. Luckily it's not too windy. If it was windy, it'd be all over the place. Anyway, such is life. You can certainly spot me a mile off anyway. John Dwyer, coming up 10 p.m. here in the UK. Ooh, 10 o'clock at night. Good man. Oh, hang on. There we go. Right. Kill switch. Sorry I'm late. I was walking the dogs. Oh, yeah. Anyway. That's the go-to excuse, right? John Dwyer. Range of the new Civic is 900 miles. This is the hydrogen one, right? On 50 litres of hydrogen. That is, wow, that's pretty good going, actually, isn't it? Which is liquefied, yeah, under pressure. Simon, so that's doable, right? 900 miles on a tank full of fuel is brilliant. It's really good range. Simon, a brake binding that much will shatter the disc. Yeah, the story doesn't stack up. You're right, Simon. It really, really doesn't. I think they've used a conclusion that just takes the focus on the electric car for once. But anyway, we get a fair share of electric cars catching fire. I've not actually seen one at the side of the road on fire myself. When I do, I'll obviously get you some photos. It'd be cool. And then I'll probably go and interview the driver and ask them why they were so stupid in buying such a dumb car. Anyway, now John Dwyer. Speed gearbox standard engine. Sieve. Hang on. There's a typo there, John. Try again. Purple Monkey 1974. I remember when LPG cars were the new thing to save the planet. Yes, I remember when we had the off-road centre, we got quite a few Range Rover, the V8 petrols turning up with LPG. And man, yeah, they didn't really run very well. They were certainly underpowered for what they should have been. And of course, they had the torpedo, or most of them had torpedo tanks underneath, which reduced the ground clearance and really posed a bit of a hazard when they were going over rocks and stuff. You know, just not really, again, not really good for that kind of usage. And then, of course, the LPG prices went up. The government subsidy to have your car converted to LPG disappeared, and very quickly people went away from it. It just wasn't, you know, certainly from converting original cars to LPG, it just wasn't an option. It was just dumb. There was no real savings in it. Daz 323323. Teslas have a massive glass roof. They should make it a solar panel glass, which helps charge the car. Yes, I thought that. You know, why are these electric cars not more, you know, covered in solar panels? I mean, in New Zealand that would work. It would certainly help. because we have a lot of sunshine here and it's very intensive sunshine. I don't know why they don't do that, because solar panels are pretty cheap, you know. Simon, I'm going to get a 30-year-old van. Tax, MOT and clean air zone exempt in the UK. Perfect. And put a diesel generator in the back to charge broken down EVs. I like your style, Simon. I like that. I like it a lot. And make sure the generator smokes like a train. Good man. Just to teach those EV people a lesson. Look what you're doing to the environment because you're driving an EV and you let it go flat. Yes. Kill switch. Another 30 odd years when everything has failed, we will all be buying horses again. You could well be right. I certainly believe that when this EV revolution finally peters out, you know, people realise the true problems around EV cars, and sure, I mean, some of the issues are going to get ironed out, right? That's development for you. But the reality is, I don't think they work. They don't really work very well. There's a lot of issues, a lot of problems associated with EV cars. Not to mention the expense of buying one. They're a lot more expensive than a normal one. And it's funny here in New Zealand, you know, you see the adverts on TV where they're pushing these EV cars really hard and they really focus on the government subsidy that, you know, to help bring the price down. But then the same manufacturer, and Mitsubishi's one of the ones that really springs to mind, when they have adverts for the petrol cars, which of course they're doing at discounts now because they're overstocked, they really push the fact that it's got a real petrol engine in it, it's quick refueling times and all that kind of thing, you know. So the marketing team on one hand is saying buy an EV because they're really, really good, and now they're saying buy a petrol engine car because they're really, really good. You know, they want the cake and eat it. It's really ironic to see what's going on. Oh, John Dwyer, 7-speed gearbox, nice. Roger Heaps, Holden tried LPG liquid injection, and by all accounts, it went well. Unfortunately, people had already given up on LPG. Yeah, too late. Too little, too late, right? Yeah. Manufacturers do that, unfortunately. They come up with really good ideas, but 10 years earlier would have been great. Anyway, like I said before, there is no pie today. I'm really sorry. I could just do with a pie, actually. I'm quite hungry. I will be getting one later on. I'll go down to the Ferg Burgery place to see if they do the pies, and we'll see what theirs is like. Will I do a scoring on it? Probably not. I'm busy doing driving tests, or not driving lesson stuff with Ellie. Ellie's got a driving license. I think she's on a restricted now. There's 3 levels of driving license here in New Zealand for cars. You've got your learners, where you've got to be accompanied. Then you go to restricted, so you can drive on your own, and then of course you can go to a full license. She's passed a restricted. She's a good driver. She's good at passing tests, but she's a little bit on the nervous side and maybe a bit hesitant at junctions and stuff, and scared about stalling the car. And Queenstown's a very busy place for cars. Everybody's in a rush to get everywhere quickly, so I just want to make sure she's, and it's a manual car, it's a proper car, right? Little Suzuki Swift, 5-speed manual. So I just want to make sure that she knows how to launch the car from junctions properly, you know? Get going quick. Do it properly. None of this hesitation stuff. See a gap go. Simple as that. Yeah. Mrs. Mechanic's very, very nervous about Eloise having her car, because the car's really nice. She bought it brand new. It hasn't done a lot of work. It's been well looked after. Looks, if you gave it a clean up, it would look like a brand new car. It really is very tidy. So she's quite concerned it's going to get a few dents and scratches and bits and pieces. And it's Ellie's first car, and I don't know if you're like me, you always crash your first car. It's just the way it is. You always crash it. Or somebody crashes into you, you know? Yes, Wheelspin. Use the tyres as your clutch, Ellie. That's exactly, Simon, what I'll be teaching her to do. Now, whether I teach her to do handbrake turns and J-turns and stuff, probably not. We'll just do the basics this time round. Just the launch. She needs to know how to launch it, not be scared to use the throttle and dump the clutch, right? But use enough throttle so it doesn't stall. It actually just spins up the wheel, and then she can just nail it and off she goes, you know? And then she can start to reel that back down until she's got to the point where she's not getting the wheel spin, but she's getting a really good launch start. And then she can get away from all the Asian drivers and all the Indian drivers that just don't know how to drive here in New Zealand. So I'm not being racist. It just seems to be people from those countries can't drive. I'm not being racist at all. It's just if they've been brought up in that country, irrespective of their ethnicity, I can't pronounce it. They just don't, especially the Asians. They can't drive. They're oblivious to all the other vehicles on the road. I think there was a study done for spatial awareness, and Asians are probably one of the worst for being spatially aware. It's fact. It's not me saying it. It's a fact. So don't take offence, please. I hear it all the time. Now, Sheldon, interesting to hear your take on e-bikes. Well, I'm looking at it from a planet perspective, an environmental perspective. Nothing else, just that. Now, this might be Mrs. Mechanic telling me I'm in trouble now. Yes, stop it. Okay, sorry, Mrs. Mechanic. Bit of a rant. Everything I said about bad drivers, completely forget about it. Mrs. Mechanic's just told me off. Honestly, she watches my live streams like a hawk. Anyway, where do we get to? So yeah, e-bikes. I mean, I've ridden one. Ben, his job is to service them and look after them and things. He works in the bicycle industry, and they sell a lot of e-bikes, and he gets good commission from it. That's great. But when it comes to actually being a good thing for the planet, I can't see how it possibly could be. Overall, I mean, in specific cases, yes, if you can leave your car at home and use your e-bike to go to work, no problem. Fully get that. That might help. But the majority of people buy the e-bikes purely for recreational purposes, and they wouldn't have bought a bicycle if it hadn't been an e-bike. So that's an additional sale, more batteries to make, more transportation costs, more disposal costs, all that kind of stuff. It's all negative, right? Oh, and you've got to transport the e-bike, if you're going mountain biking, behind your car to get to the mountain bike place to ride the e-bike. More travel, more fuel, more power. You might drive an e-car, an EV. Probably not. Probably driving a normal car, so more fuel. When you start to dig into it, it's not great. I mean, why not just buy a dirt bike that's road registered and you can ride it straight out of the garage and leave your car at home? Dirt bikes are a lot better on fuel than cars. Probably overall, you'll have a lot more fun. I don't know. It's a difficult one, isn't it? People do what people do. John, Mr. Dwyer, internal combustion engine, top speed, 135 miles per hour. The hell was that relating to? Hang on. Oh, 7-speed gearbox. Well, that's good. I like that. 135. You can get to where you want to be pretty quick with that, can't you? Kill switch, Sheldon. Horse pull bikes. Anything. If the marketing team get hold of it, they'll try and sell it, right? Machine NZ. Probably a government subsidy for that. Kill switch. You might be onto something. I see in parts of the world, UK now, trailing. They are now trialing 20-minute cities. If you've read about this, have a look. It's totally crazy. 20-minute cities. I'll have to look at that. Hang on, I'll take a picture. I have to take pictures because I can never find the comments afterwards. Bear with me. Right, hopefully Mrs. Mechanic's happy again now. 20-minute cities. There we go. Look. Cheers, Kevin. Thank you for that. Simon, Wheelspin, yes, we've done that one. Sheldon, people just need to not be lazy. I biked to New Zealand in 16 days, 2,380 kilometres. You are genuinely mad, Sheldon. You really are. A phenomenal feat. Really, really good. And I'm sure you thoroughly enjoyed doing it. And testament to your physical fitness, I'm sure. You would never, ever. I don't think you could pay me enough money in the world to do that. Or even attempt. I mean, I couldn't do it for a start, but even to attempt to do it, to cycle the full length of New Zealand, I'd be pretty damn grumpy by the end of it, I think. Things would just be too slow. Simon, there are all taxi drivers in the UK. They are all taxi drivers. I know what that relates to. Correct. I'm sure you're right. Lemon Carrot, good name. EV will be sweet when we can swap used powertrains into the platforms we love for cheap. EVs will be sweet when we can swap used powertrains into the platforms we love for cheap. So you're on about putting an EV into your old muscle car, converting your muscle car to an EV. Yeah. I mean, they're powerful. You know, they're a lot quicker off the line. There's no doubt about that. I think in some cases they're too powerful. People are buying cars now. You know, your domestic cars are the equivalent of. I mean, that Polestar, over 500 equivalent brake horsepower for a car. Do you really need all that? You know, you're lugging around all that heavy drivetrain and all those extra batteries and all that stuff. Most of the time, you don't need it. So again, it's the I want, not I need scenario, and what the manufacturers think we need. If they really were trying to save the planet, we'd all be driving around something like a Nissan Leaf that's super economic, you know, and light, good range, but not too heavy batteries. But that's not the case. We've got the Lightning trucks. It's sort of losing the whole reason why EVs were developed to start off with. You know, John, byproduct for the exhaust is water. Yes, on the hydrogen stuff, it is. It's brilliant. More water in the world, the better, right? Usually, unless there's a flood. The Civic, yes, Civic. Sorry, John, I was trying to go back to 7-speed gearbox on the Civic, 135 mile an hour. That's a good little car. That's pretty nifty, to be honest. One thing I liked, I watched a James May YouTube video. It must have been on the TV actually, and then it ended up on YouTube, where Honda were developing the hydrogen fuel cell stuff, and it was in a people carrier type of car, and they were trying to get it smaller and smaller, this fuel cell, and they'd made one as small as they could at the time. And he said you could actually, when you're not using the car, the fuel cell was big enough and produced enough power to power a whole street. Obviously, he didn't say how many houses there were, but a whole street of houses for their electric. Obviously, things are a lot smaller now, but it just gave you an idea just how much energy these fuel cells can put out. Very cool. Sheldon, John, yes, hydrogen cars is the way, I reckon. I think so. And I think it's definitely going to come. And then all these electric cars, they'll be worth nothing. So they'll end up on the scrap heap. Which is, again, bad for the planet, right? We're all going to, you know, as consumers do, they want the newest thing. They're going to go away from EVs and buy the hydrogen cars. And then, of course, you know, countries will be scrabbling around trying to set up a network of hydrogen fuel sites where you can refuel your car to make it plausible. And all the electric ones that have been put out will die a death. Which is probably a good thing, actually. Yeah, very interesting conversation, actually. And, you know, we're all learning more about EVs and seeing more disadvantages of them as time goes on. And there will be a tipping point. There'll be a point where, you know what, people start, the general public start to realise and go, you know what, it's not actually quite as good as my old petrol car, my old diesel car. And it's a lot more expensive to run. Yes, the fuel's cheaper, but overall, all those hidden expenses, and even the expenses like with the Polestar being transported 480 miles for its service, and then another 480 miles back, you know, when you start to factor in all those costs, because at the end of the day, they've got to be paid by somebody, they are a cost, that really doesn't look good. It doesn't look good at all. Simon, Brown's gas generator will be the way forward. Put water in the tank and turn it into hydrogen. That would be very cool. Don't forget though, Simon, the governments will tax you on the water that you put in your car. How on earth they would even possibly control that? They'd probably switch and just put it on, like we have what we call road user charges here in New Zealand, where you pay a tax per kilometre that you drive on the diesels. So they'll probably abolish the tax on the fuel and load it up on road user charges, we call it here. But if you're only going to be doing short distances, then that could be a major win. Yes, that would be very cool. Brown's gas generator, I'll check that one out. John Dwyer, I'm waiting for it. £28,000 though. That's a chunk of change. But I'd be far more amenable to one of those, definitely. Kevin, another issue with EVs is their weight. They're a lot heavier than a normal internal combustion engine vehicle. New Zealand roads are poorly made and there's always complaints with heavy trucks. New Zealand's answer is to lower the speed limits. Yeah, that'll make the truck lighter. Yeah, great idea. And you're quite right. The heavier the cars, the more stress on the road surface, and it doesn't last as long. And that's a major negative for our road network. Our roads here in New Zealand are shit. They really are bad at the moment. I mean, they're scrabbling around trying to get them fixed up, but man, they've probably never been in a worse condition. Really, really bad. I'm just pleased I drive a ute because, you know, potholes, it goes through. With a trailer on, you're very limited to how much you can swerve around the road, and I made damn sure I've got 10-ply tyres on there, and they're good tyres. They really are. It's gonna want some new ones, probably. Maybe even the next warrant. I know one of them is getting a bit worn on the inside, and I do keep rotating. Well, I get them rotated. I don't rotate them round. It's a work truck. They get rotated, but it's probably going to need some new ones soon. That's a very good point. More cost, more tax, because it's a taxpayer that ends up paying for the roads, right? So we're all going to be paying more money again. And the way the inflation is at the moment, you know, disposable income's shrinking really quickly. Cost of living is going through the roof here in New Zealand, and there's a lot of and there's been a big downturn in house prices up in Auckland especially, but across the country in general. And there's been quite a few people have ended up in negative equity, and banks have been foreclosing. You know, there was a case on Facebook, and of course Facebook's a great place for genuine information, but I'm sure it was true. A house in Remuera, they found themselves, I think the house value dropped by about 12% or something, huge amount. And the bank just stepped in and said, "No, you got to sell it. It's too much of a liability. We're not going to keep funding it." And they had to sell the house. And it's like, holy shit, really? I mean, I'm sure they'll bounce back, but you know, with all the inflation and stuff, people have got less money to buy houses, so the prices come down. And I think there's more restrictions now as well on foreigners. Yeah, PC that. Foreigners buying New Zealand property. It's a lot harder for them to buy, so that in turn is bringing the prices back down again, or at least capping them. You know, Simon, the heavier the car, they will make more tyre particulate matter too. Yeah, the tyres will wear out quicker. More rubber on the roads. When it rains, the roads are more slippy. Good point, Simon. Good point. And of course, more tyre sales and more old tyres to try and dispose of. And there's New Zealand can't just, you know, recycle all the old tyres. They just end up on farms and in landfills and big mounds and stuff. Big problem. Kevin, off now, mate. A day in the shed for me. Oh, nice. I'm envious. Have a safe journey stroke trip. I will. Today's a bit of a rest day, really. I'm a bit anxious about Ellie driving, but we'll find a really quiet little back lane somewhere, or maybe an empty car park, and try and get her sorted out. She just needs a bit of a confidence boost. You know, I wasn't allowed to do any driving lessons with my children. They found I was a bit too stern, and you get angry too quick, Daddy. No, you can't teach me to drive. I'll get Mummy to teach me. So Mrs. Mechanics taught them all how to drive. Apart from Ben, I think Ben just naturally picked it up because he used to move vehicles around the yard and stuff for us when we had the off-road centre. So he was sort of self-taught, really. But yes, have a nice day, Kevin. Good on you, mate. Thanks for joining. My coffee is very cold now. Right, time check is 9:30. We've been going almost an hour. I think, realistically, we've covered everything. One last thing. There was no pie, but when I got into the room last night, I got given a cookie time cookie. It was on the bed. So thank you, Scenic. I do like these. I'll save this for later on. I won't have it now. But yes, that's my breakfast. Okay, crew, thank you all for joining. It's been a really interesting discussion around EVs. I do enjoy that kind of stuff, and you're all very knowledgeable. And it's great when we pool our knowledge and thoughts together to try and get a true picture of what's really going on out there. And I'm sure we'll revisit that topic again many times in the future as things develop. But no, for this one, thank you very much for joining. And I'm going to get packed up, put the Pyrex dish away and the coaster and stuff, and then head down and find Ellie. So, wish me luck. See you around, chaps. Thanks for joining, and all your support as well. Really appreciate it. I'll see you around. Cheers. Over and out.